This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain a mystery, romance, sci-fi film called Reminiscence. Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. Due to climate change, the sea levels rose and flooded the coastal cities across the world. To avoid the heat of daylight, most people work at night. After serving in the war that ensued due to the catastrophe, Nick Bannister started working as a private investigator in Miami while operating a business that uses a machine to help people relive their memories. One night, his associate Emily Watts Sanders informs him that his friend Hank is there for an appointment to reminisce about his dog Angie. Nick and Watts soon prepare Hank to enter the tank to relive the day that he played with Angie outside his father's house 13 years ago. After the session, Hank discloses that he doesn't have enough cash, but Nick tells him that the session is on the house because he's an old friend from the military. Watts warns Nick that they could go out of business if he keeps giving free sessions to his war buddies, but Nick assures her that they'd never run out of paying clients because people are addicted to their good memories. One of their clients, Elsa, always comes to relive a moment with her lover. Watts gives her a recording of the memory so she doesn't have to return every week, but Elsa thinks it's not the same because she can't feel her lover's arms around her. After Elsa leaves, Nick hums a tune while operating a vault to store the session's recording. As Nick and Watts prepare to leave, a red-headed woman named May arrives and tells him that she needs to remember where she lost her keys. Before putting May into the tank, Nick injects her with thiopental to relax her neural pathways. Watts then asks May to remove her earrings. Afterward, Nick puts a headset on May and assures her that the electricity in the device will not go over 30 volts. Soon, May recalls how she put her keys in her bag while preparing to leave for work. She had taken them out when she was paying for a boat ride, but she didn't lose them. Afterward, May dropped the keys in the dressing room while searching for her favorite earring. Watts asks Nick to stop the session, but Nick decides to continue. He watches May trying to hold back her tears as she prepares to go on stage to perform a song. Nick is instantly captivated by May's voice when he hears her sing. When May leaves the session, Watts discovers that she has left her earrings. The following night, Nick visits the district attorney's office to help the prosecutor with a case against Walter Sylvan, the most notorious land baron in the city. Prosecutor Avery Castillo accuses Walter of burning houses to buy the land at a low price, but Walter denies it. Nick is supposed to help Avery interrogate Walter in the tank, but Walter's lawyer contends that he's no condition to go in the machine. As Walter prepares to leave the office, Nick overhears Walter and his son, Sebastian, talking about a woman. Walter asks Sebastian if he found her, but Sebastian notes that his search was unsuccessful. Later, Nick goes to the sunken coast and stops by the bar where May works as a lounge singer to return her earrings. After May's performance, Nick asks her why she was crying in her memory before she went on stage. May admits that she's afraid that she won't live up to people's expectations. Later, May asks Nick to take her home, and after they arrive, May seduces Nick and they end up making love. When Nick wakes up, he finds May on the roof, waiting for the sun to set. May offers him tea on a glass and notes that she can't find her mug. Nick then points out that the mug is under her sink and discloses that he saw it in a reminiscence. He explains that people only tend to notice things that they are focused on at the moment. Nick believes that people notice new things in their memories, but they risk burning the memory in their minds, causing it to play an endless loop. May surmises that Nick doesn't go in the tank because he's afraid it could happen to him. She hints that he might want to risk it for the right memories. May suddenly fades, and Nick wakes up in the tank. Watts scolds Nick for going into the machine to recall his moments with May for the past 4 months. Nick is puzzled about May's sudden disappearance because they were happy and planning for their future. Nick thinks May is in trouble, but Watts argues that the disappearance was intentional because May settled with her landlord. Watts warns Nick that his business could fail if he doesn't forget about May. She then announces that Avery called them about a job, so she advises him to sleep before meeting with her. Instead of going home, Nick goes to May's workplace to see if she has returned, but a bouncer contends that she's not there. Later, Nick goes back to the tank and reminisces about a time that he went on a picnic with May in a district only meant for barons. Nick confessed his love for May, but she insisted that Nick couldn't be in love with her because they'd only known each other for a few months. After the picnic, Nick took her to a tower to get a nice view of the city. May asked him to tell her a story with a happy ending, but Nick argued that all endings are sad even if the story was happy. May then told him to tell her a happy story but ended in the middle. Before Nick could recall what happened next, an alarm wakes him up. Nick finds a note instructing him to get to the court. Nick suddenly hears someone knocking, but he yells out that they're closed. He doesn't see anyone when he checks the door, but he finds May's earring on the street. When Nick and Watts go to the court, Avery informs them that a drug dealer who overdosed is going into a tank to find something that they could use against the notorious drug kingpin, St. Joe. During the session, the drug dealer, Falks, went to a bar in New Orleans to speak with Joe. Upon coming face to face with Joe, Fawkes overheard the Kingpin instructing a dirty cop to tell his colleagues to turn a blind eye on his drug deals. Suddenly, Joe's attention is caught by May when she starts performing at the bar. Nick asks Watts when the memory occurred, so she discloses it was over 5 years ago. Joe was fascinated by May, so he instructed Fawkes to introduce him to her. When Joe met her, he asked May to try a highly addictive drug called Baca. After May refused, Fawkes castigated her and tried to slap her, but Joe stopped Fawkes and beat him up. The corrupt cop threatened to shoot Fawkes, but he changed his mind when Fawkes begged for his life. Nick then asked Fawkes to recall the last time that he saw May. Fawkes remembers that the last time he saw May with Joe was when he picked up some Baca. By that time, May had become Joe's mistress. After Joe left, Fawkes discovered that May was planning to steal Baca from Joe. May suddenly knocked Fawkes out so she could flee with the drugs. The next day, Nick goes to New Orleans to meet Joe. He pretends to be a friend of a drug dealer named Lorenzo, but Joe knows that he's lying because Lorenzo died years ago. Joe's men then subdue him and dunk his head into a fish tank to compel him to reveal his true intentions. When they take his head out of the tank, Nick discloses that he's searching for May. Joe notes that he hasn't seen May since she fled. Joe's men soon dunk Nick's head into the fish tank again to drown him. Suddenly, Watts arrives and sends a bouncer flying across the room. She shoots the men drowning Nick, but Joe warns them that he'll kill them if they let go of Nick. As Watts attacks the other henchmen, Joe arms himself with 2 handguns. During the firefight, Watts hits the fish tank, causing it to break and release all the water. Nick tries to break free from the henchmen subduing him. Nick pins him to the ground and plunges the syringe into his eye. Joe then turns his attention to Nick when he sees him grabbing his henchman's gun, but Watts shoots Joe in the back before he can fire at Nick. Joe survives when he asks Watts to kill him after she points out that his lungs are filling up with blood. Watts and Nick soon leave the bar after she kills Joe. Later, Nick recalls when May told him how she arrived in Miami. May first went to New Orleans after London submerged. She had bad memories in New Orleans, so she got a one-way ticket out of the city and arrived in Miami. Having no place to stay, May slept on a dinghy in a canal. May ended up drifting past the Florida Keys when someone cut the rope for an unknown reason. She thought that she would drift to the ocean, but she came across a white clapboard house. May told Nick that she thought it was a mirage, but the owner, Francis, took her in and helped her get back on her feet. May noted that she thought about Francis whenever she felt lost or scared. Nick revealed that he thought of a song his grandfather used to hum. He noted that he hadn't heard the song for a long while until he heard May sing it. When Nick wakes up from the tank, he realizes that May came to his office because she wanted something from him. Watts recalls that she left May alone in the office after a heart-to-heart talk about her alcoholism and May's addiction to Baca. Watts contends that May couldn't have broken into the vault because she doesn't know the code. However, Nick reveals that he unlocks the vault by humming a tune. May probably figured out the tune after studying him for months. When they inspect the vault's contents, they discover that Elsa's files are missing. Nick tries to find Elsa at the market, but a woman informs him that she's dead, and a red-headed woman took her son, Freddie. Nick surmises that May abducted the child, so he looks for her in an abandoned theme park. Suddenly, a man attacks Nick and tells him to forget about May. After Nick reminisces about the incident, Watts discovers that the man who assaulted him was the corrupt cop who worked with Joe. Watts and Nick go to the DA's office to ask Avery about the cop. Upon their arrival, they find a large crowd protesting. Watts notifies Nick that Walter died, and the crowd is protesting a court decision to hand over his properties to Sebastian and Walter's wife, Tamara. Nick recounts that Tamara once came to him for a session when he first opened his shop. Nick and Watts soon learn that the corrupt cop's name is Cyrus Booth. After falling out with Joe, Cyrus started working for Walter. Soon, Nick recognizes the voice of Elsa's unknown lover while viewing a recorded session. He deduces that Elsa's lover is Walter after recognizing the same voice from a recording of Tamar's Reminiscence. Nick surmises that Walter wanted Freddie dead because he knew he was dying and wanted to tie up loose ends. When Nick expresses his intention to find May, Watts warns him that it's becoming an obsession. She begs Nick to forget about May and keep working with her, but Nick fires her so that she can move on to a better job. Later, Nick goes to Walter's house to interrogate Tamara, but the butler mistakes him for an actor who would help her reenact a happy moment with Walter. Tamara wants to relive the moment she found out she was pregnant, but Nick insists on learning why Walter asked Cyrus to kill Elsa and Freddie. Tamara discloses that Walter had them killed because he didn't like sharing. She further reveals that Cyrus worked with a woman from New Orleans. When Nick asks where they are, Tamara hints that they can be found with the trash that cannot be thrown away. Sebastian suddenly arrives and recognizes Nick as someone who works with the prosecutor, so he calls security. Tamara tells the guard to kill Nick, but the man lets him go because they both served in the military. Nick soon goes to the recycling plants to find Cyrus and May. Not long after, Nick sees a woman who resembles May, so he follows her. Nick soon finds her with Cyrus, but he realizes that the woman is not May. Nick asks Cyrus where May is, but Cyrus just hums the song that he once sang and reveals that everything she did was part of their plan. Cyrus flees when Nick threatens to shoot him. Nick chases after him and they end up fighting on a rooftop. Cyrus jumps to the next building, but Nick follows him. They continue exchanging blows until they fall down the stairs. As the fight continues in the music room, Cyrus's hand gets caught in a grand piano. The floor suddenly collapses, and the piano sinks underwater, taking Cyrus along with it. Nick goes after Cyrus and frees his hand from the piano, but Cyrus assaults him as soon as he breaks free. Cyrus swims back to the surface as Nick slowly sinks to the bottom. Nick gains the motivation to return to the surface after hallucinating May. When Nick emerges from the water, he stabs Cyrus with a syringe full of thiopental. Nick takes Cyrus back to his office to put him under the tank to uncover what happened to May. The reminiscence begins, and Nick discovers that Cyrus tracked down May after she fled from Joe. Cyrus threatened to take her back to Joe unless she helped him steal something from Nick. May soon agreed, and the two planned to gain Nick's trust. Months later, May stole Elsa's files from Nick's vault. As the session continues, Nick learns that Cyrus killed Elsa, but he's relieved that May fled with Freddy on the boat to protect him from Cyrus. Afterward, May went back to Nick's office, but Cyrus caught her. While Cyrus dragged her to his car, May dropped her earring so that Nick could find her. Cyrus took May back to the recycling plant and forced her to ingest Baka so that she would be compelled to reveal where she took Freddy. She reveals that he already knew, because she already told him about the time that she saw a mirage floating above the sea. Nick realizes that May is talking to him through the memory, and she is hinting that she took Freddy to the white clapboard house. May kissed Cyrus and told him that she loved him while imagining that he was Nick. Suddenly, May stabbed Cyrus in the shoulder. She then started ingesting Baka to overdose and keep Freddy safe. After swallowing the pills, May jumped in the water so that Cyrus couldn't force her to tell him anything. Outraged by what happened to May, Nick compels Cyrus to recall the worst memory of his life. Cyrus remembers when Joe's men burned him after he stole from them. Nick exclaims that the memory will burn in his mind for the rest of his life. He then sets the machine to its maximum voltage as Cyrus struggles in the tank. Later, Nick goes to the Sylvan estate to confront Sebastian. Nick figures out that Sebastian discovered about his father's affair and ordered Cyrus to kill Elsa and his son. Walter actually wanted Sebastian to find Elsa to help them, but Sebastian had them killed to avoid sharing Walter's wealth. Sebastian tries to deny it, but Nick calls him from Cyrus's phone to prove that Sebastian was conspiring with him. When Nick mentions that Freddy is still alive, Sebastian grabs Nick's gun and points it at him. However, he couldn't pull the trigger. Sebastian then threatens to kill himself, but Nick points out that he doesn't have the guts to do it. Nick visits Watts in her new job to give her the recording of Cyrus's memories. He instructs her to give it to Avery even though it will incriminate him for burning Cyrus's memories into his mind. Soon, Avery cuts a deal with Nick for his role in exposing Sebastian's crime. Nick doesn't walk free, but he's allowed to go into the tank and burn good memories of May in his mind for the rest of his life. Decades later, Watts visits Nick in the office with her granddaughter. When the child asks Watts if she misses Nick, Watts tells her that she chose to look ahead while Nick chose to look back. She notes that they both made the right choice, despite their different paths. Inside the tank, Nick recalls the time he and May went to a tower to enjoy the view of the city. When May asked him to tell her a story, he recounted the ancient legend of Orpheus and Eurydice. Eurydice had died, so Orpheus went to the underworld to beg the devil to release her. The devil agreed on the condition that he couldn't look back until they escaped. Instead of telling May that the tale ended in tragedy, Nick told her that Orpheus led Eurydice back to life, and they lived happily ever after.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.